What's going on, musical savants? We are back today with another video on how to do some cool stuff with Apple Music and Marvis. And I'll be honest, I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve with Marvis sections, but I am reaching the end of what I've been able to put together with the app. There's no sadness over here. I'm over the moon with my music library literally every single day. But that said, I've thrown the pitch out there a few times, but definitely happy to put something together from any idea that somebody might have. But other than that, I'll probably be wrapping up the series in about a month or so, unless we get some new features from the all-star dev. But anyway, enough about that. Let's take a look at what we've got going on today. I'm super excited. I'm going to be doing something that many of you might have already figured out on your own. But for me personally, it took a while to fully get this idea realized. So a little background, one thing I've always missed since shifting away from the radio is that, oh my gosh, what is this song feeling? So I actually really like a few Sirius XM stations, and honestly, if it scrabbled to Last FM and also didn't sound like absolute crap, I'd probably have that as a supplemental subscription. But that said, I no longer have any desire at all to sign up for Sirius because of Marvis's ability to blend my library with new music, and it completely takes care of that desire for me. As this video is going to cover a lot of things that we've already discussed, rather than build this from scratch, I'm actually going to go through my settings for a song mix that I call Alt Nation, which is based on the radio station of the same name from Sirius. So with that said, let's jump in and take a look. So popping this mix open here, you can see that it's about 35 songs. And scrolling through, you can see some pluses here on the right, which signifies songs that aren't in my library yet. So opening up the options here, we'll take a look at some of the smart rules that I have set up. So quick reminder, if you need a refresher on how to mix playlists or things like that, feel free to take a look at one of my prior videos. Put a link here for you. But what we're going to be doing is just going through the settings. I'm not going to be explaining how the settings work or things like that, since I have covered that before. So jumping into the smart rules, you can see that I have 5 different rule groups, and each one is pulling in some music from different sources. First one here that we're going to click on is going to be Apple Music that isn't already in my library. So this rule group right here is called Playlist List. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? And in there, I've got 3 playlists that I'm pretty confident will have music that will match my alternative vibe that I'm going for here in this overall song mix. And you can have as many as you like, but one thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned before, if you have playlists of different sizes, you might end up only hearing from some of them if they're particularly larger than other ones, and you might need to set up some limits. And I did talk about that in one of my prior videos, but let me know if you have any issues with that. One other important thing that I've mentioned before, and that is to make sure that the option at the bottom left is set to any instead of all. This will make sure that you're getting music from all of these playlists, I guess kind of counterintuitively, and not just songs that are in every single one of these playlists. So this, by switching this to any, it means that any of these playlists are fair game to be pulled into this song mix. So pulling back out, this is really important. I've got another rule group here called filters, and it's in here that I ensure a few things are happening with the music from those Apple Music playlists. It first gets rid of anything that's already in my music library, so this is truly just new music. It's going to get rid of any music where I have skipped it. So I use this skip ratio thing. I kind of toy around with the idea of also just doing like if there's any skips, so skips is greater than 0, that might work as well. I've got that I don't dislike the song. That's kind of how I make sure that it doesn't show up again, even if I skip it. I think that those sync better than skips do for music that's not in your library. So sometimes I try and do both of those. And then we've got last played, not in the last 14 days. Could also switch that just to 0 plays at all. So I'm not 100% confident. I might change that actually, but that's what I've got going on here. But those are different rules that I want set up for this music that's not in my library already. And of course, I've got all of that shuffled together, and then I limit it to just 7 songs. This is a 35 song mix, so I have 7 songs from each of these categories in here. So that's going to be bringing in some new music. The other rules I have in here are pretty similar to some prior mixes that I've shown you, but let's just take a quick look at what we've got and see how that all shakes out. So backing out other sources of music here, I've got recent ads, which pulls in songs that aren't in my new songs, so they're not in my last month list, but are still pretty recent at 6 months or less. It's got a cutoff of 15 plays before they won't show up here anymore. And again, I've got that shuffled and then limited down to just 7 songs. So this, these are those songs on the radio that they start to kind of fade out a little bit, but are still pretty new. And then I've got way back plays, which is kind of the opposite. These are like throwback hits. And what I do is I basically take all of my alternative songs and I pick 7 of the least recently played songs. So basically, these are going to be ones that sometimes it's been 5+ years since I've heard one. And it's just a wonderful way to surface up old favorites that I haven't listened to in a long time. I really love this rule group a lot. Next one, nice and easy. These are just straight up my favorite songs in this genre. So rating greater than 3, so only 4 and 5 star songs. Found sounds alternative, and then it's just shuffled and limited to 7. I don't really have any other filters other than that because I could hear these songs over and over and over again. And then lastly, I pulled in, and I haven't titled this rule group, but I've pulled in 7 songs from my most recently found songs playlist, my last month found sound songs. So it's really cool because you can basically take, playlist is blank and then playlist is another one. And this will only take overlapping songs between these 2 playlists. So there's a lot of really good uses for this beyond just this song mix, but it's just a super easy way to not have to plug in all the smart filter rules from this and plug in all the smart. I mean, there'd be like 7 smart filter rules here, but in this case, I just take the overlapping between these 2 playlists, shuffle that up, maximum of 7 songs. And then, so finally, the last thing right on here is that all of these are all shuffled together, obviously. So that is kind of the final rule. Going back to the main menu here, we're going to see that this extended library button is on. I've said this before, but it's worth saying again. This is really important for pulling in those Apple Music songs that aren't already in your library. That's what this option allows for, is for those filters to not just be stuck in what you've already got in your library. So again, it's not really a deep dive in how to do each of those filters because I have covered those in earlier videos, but of course feel free to drop a comment if you're having trouble somewhere or something's not quite acting the way that you want it to. You can also, it's worth pointing out, you can also take any of these and you can swipe over and disable them. So if you want to make sure that just one single rule is working or you're not seeing that showing up over here, you can disable everything except that rule and see what it pulls in. So I've definitely used that quite a few times to make sure that I'm getting, I don't know, like not getting the ascending and descending mixed up for getting my oldest plays or things like that. I've set up mixes like this for a number of different stations. So my music tastes are pretty broad, but I've got one for Alt Nation, which is the alternative station on there. I've got one for BPM radio. This is going to be more dance and pop music, and you can see that it's kind of the same setup right here, just using different playlists like that. And then slight tweaks. So I've got all those back end genre playlists. So it makes it really easy. I can just copy and paste one radio station in, swap over all the those little playlists that I use as the back end, and it makes it really quick. And then I've got Octane radio. So this is what I'm feeling in a metalhead type mood. I actually found this one to be a little tougher because I found that there's just a really wide range of metal music and hard rock, and I'm pretty picky with this genre, I guess. So if I go into my filters here, this may be something that can help if you're running into a similar issue. I get recommended certain songs very frequently by Apple Music and Spotify and things like that, and they show up a lot in these playlists. So this might make some people angry because of what I've filtered out, but if you take a look here, you can see that these artists show up all the time in like a hard rock playlist, and it's just not really up my alley. So I can filter out all of these artists on here and make sure that those aren't going to show up in this song mix. Super sorry to any Daughtry fans out there, but it's not what I'm looking for in this particular song mix. Even putting together something like a world radio station right now. There's a few really good Apple Music playlists for that. Permanent Vacation is a good example of one. main problem for me is that I don't have a lot of world music in my own library, like these genres. These genres, I have hundreds or at least thousands of songs. So with those ones, I have it mostly Apple Music stuff, and then tweak the rule groups for my own songs because I don't need that. The last 6 months, what songs have I had? Because it's just, there's like 10 songs in there, and they'll just keep showing up over and over again. But I do have some of these radio stations for kind of my less frequent genres, I guess. And I'm going to do a little bit more of a dive into genres in a future video so I can show off some of those. But you can tweak these and just kind of change how much of your own music shows up versus Apple Music and hit exactly what you're looking for. So anyway, that's how I've been able to break my craving to subscribe to Sirius XM that shows up every few months and just be happy with what I've got. What I've got is Apple Music and Marvis, and it is just a fantastic way to interact with music in general. So, as always, hit me up with any questions or comments, and just keep on listening out there.